Hi, and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
And there we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a really special show that I've decided to do. Usually I just do my shows on the weekend, but this opportunity came up and I simply could not pass it up. And the opportunity of which I speak of is I'm joined today by Nir Mamann. How are you, Nir?
I'm very good, Avrum. Thank you. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much. I love your mohawk haircut. You look fabulous. Now, Nir Maman is one of those individuals whom we're all a little bit envious of in our own way. And the flip side to who he is in his life, he also makes us feel safe, being the Canadian Jews that we are. Why we might be a little bit envious of him is because he has really his entire life he has committed to the defense of others, and that is through teaching of Krav Maga. He's world class, as well as anti-terrorism. He is currently in the IDF, and he's home for a little bit. The reason why I say that we as Canadian Jews feel comfortable not being him is because essentially what he does is he has given his life over to the protection of the Jewish people, to the protection of Israel, and of course to the protection of his family and the Jewish community here in Toronto. He has a fascinating bio. I was thinking of reading the whole damn thing, but I think that would take up the whole show. So I think what we'll do is we'll ask questions and that'll unfold as we go. Now, before we get going, both Nir and I want to apologize for any excessive coughing. Apparently, we both have that cough, right, Nir?
Yes, yes, yes.
So let's dive right in. I am so curious about your life and what you do. You've been home from Israel, more specifically Gaza, for about 10 days. Where are you in your head? Are you here in Toronto? Are you in Gaza? Are you in Jerusalem? Where are you?
Well, that's a good question. So I can tell you that when I close my eyes at night, it's really strange when you leave the service. I know this of many friends and colleagues who have spent their life in policing, and many friends and colleagues in the military, specifically in the IDF. When you leave for months on end, every time you close your eyes, all you're dreaming about is you're still in service. It's really, really strange. And I had that, I left the IDF. I completed my last term of service in close to 2010. And I remember just every night dreaming as if I was still in service. And that is every single dream that I have had since returning from my first tour, which was February 16th after almost 4 months of service. And it still goes on every night. I close my eyes and I'm in uniform, receiving orders and going on a mission, and that's it. So while I sleep, I'm definitely still there. While I'm awake, I'm half and half. It's my family that anchors me in life, and so I am with them here. But every other aspect, I'm in uniform and I'm there. And that's where I'm at right now in life.
Yeah. I think it's appropriate that we dedicate this show, if you're okay with it, to your lovely wife, Simone, and to your 5 children.
Thank you.
And the reason I say that is because when you go to Israel and you are in Gaza or you're in Hebron, you're not there alone. You're not a single soldier like you used to be. You're there with your family, right?
Thank you so much for noticing that. Sorry, you have to also forgive me. I'm still jet lagged and still, bouncing between Hebrew and English. But thank you very much for understanding that, because that is very much the case for all of us. I have half of my brain when I'm over there that is focused on what we need to do, and the other half that is my wife and my kids. And this has been the most difficult thing that we have had to go through as a family, this is the most difficult thing that I had to go through myself, my 47 years of life as well. Before I was married and with family, I mean, I went on all kinds of adventures and wouldn't think twice about anything. Now, literally, when we're sitting there in a briefing, and we're being told you guys are going to raid a building right now, there's a good probability that it's going to be booby-trapped with IEDs. Right away, all I'm thinking about is, my God, my family. What if this is the time where I take a step and that's it? And so it's a very, very unique thing that I'm going through. But yes, that right now that's where my head is at. So I'm trying to make the most of it that I possibly can when I'm here. I'm understanding very much the value of all of those quotes and memes that I've read and seen for years about, you never know if it's the last time you're walking out the door. So give that extra kiss, give that extra hug. And I am very devoted to that very notion. And that's how I'm taking every single minute that I'm blessed with my wife and my kids these days.
In movies, we often see the soldier in the field will be challenged by a very, very difficult situation, sometimes life and death. And we often see what they'll do is they'll take out a picture of their wife and or their kids. Does that actually happen? Do you carry a picture of your family with you?
So in my first round of service, which was in Judea, Samaria, specifically in the Hebron region, I had more flexibility. We were able to keep our phones on us. And so I was able to stay connected, with the family on a daily basis. We would FaceTime every night, message. I would always have pictures back and forth that we would send each other. I had the luxury of that. In Gaza, we're not allowed to have our phones with us. The phone stays on base before we jump on the armored vehicles and we get taken into Gaza. So I didn't have the luxury of that. It makes you again all these little things that you learn to appreciate in life.
Yes.
That you learn to stop taking for granted. The mere fact that in this day and age we can jump on a phone and send each other videos and FaceTime and all that. I mean, I don't understand how the world survived before before all this.
Right, exactly.
However, the fact that we get it's really a blessing. I imagine even my kids, which especially for the littlest ones, our 4-year-old Emmett, for him in these last 5 months, we've seen the evolution of him coming to understanding that he's not at home. And I get, I would see it. I would FaceTime and I would be in uniform all the time and with a helmet. And that's how he got used to seeing me. And then when I was in Gaza, my last round of service, I remember we got the notice about 3 or 4 days before, hey, at the end of this week, we're packing up, we're being rotated out, and we're going home. And I remember our officers, the commanders, they have their phones with them. And so we are allowed to use them once in a while, and some of us have families. And so they let us, obviously connect with them. So I remember FaceTiming my wife and kids. And our 9-year-old and our 4-year-old, Zev and Emmett, were there. They answered the phone. And I was telling them that he's coming home next week. And Zev was jumping for joy. And Emmett had this look on his face. I didn't understand what it was, but he had this look. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't excited. And then when I spoke with my wife, I think it was later on that day, she said, I told Emmett, Daddy's coming home. Are you excited? He said, no, Daddy was still wearing his helmet, which means he's not coming home. And it's like these little things that suddenly they learn, and that you're getting introduced to about how they see things and what things mean to them. So, Gaza, without having the ability to every day call my family, to see them, to listen to their voices, that actually, it took a toll. It was a pretty heavy, significant aspect of having that taken away. We also have, of course, to carry pictures of your family. It's one of the reasons why they don't allow us to have our phones, because God forbid if something happens, whether it's losing your phone and Hamas picks it up, whether you get killed and they take your body, whether they take what you have on you, they now have access to your life.
That's right.
So we rely very heavily on our memory and our dreams while we're there to stay connected that way.
Nir, your family's in Richmond Hill. You're in Gaza, let's say, as you were. How honest are you with your wife when you're there? When you FaceTime?
Okay, so good question. Let's go back to the beginning here. When October 7th happened, let's go even before that. I left the IDF close to 2010, and I missed every day of it. That was something that in my heart, I was born to be a soldier. And I still had my IDF dress uniforms in my closet with all my pins and everything. And there isn't a day that would go by that I wouldn't look at the uniform and I wouldn't ask God, please, I want to be back in service somehow. Family and work and mortgage and a dog, and there's no possible way to make it happen. So I had no clue that ask of mine would one day materialize and would happen. It's heartbreaking that this is the reason behind it, but one day it happens. October 7th happened. I was out of the service for 13 years. And I knew that no matter what, I would be back in uniform defending Israel again, because there was no choice. There was no way that this is happening. Everybody is getting involved. I was born to be a soldier. I am going to be back there. I don't know how it would happen. So we started kind of this process of, between my wife and me discussing, okay, if I can make it happen, what is it going to look like for us? Now, I promised my wife, look, I understand where I'm at these days. I had a lot of friends and relatives that would say, Nir, listen, you're not 20 years old anymore. You're not single. You have a wife. You have a kids. You have responsibilities. Can you please get your head screwed on straight? You can do things for your people from here, from Toronto, Canada, right? That may be true, but that's just not how I know to be the best that I can contribute and what God made me. So that's everything I was contending with. So to my lovely wife, I said to her, look, one thing that I promise is that I won't go to Gaza. All right. So right now, the unit that I'm going to be joining, we are in Judea, Samaria. That is where I'll stay. I won't go to Gaza. Fast forward, I come home from Judea, Samaria. I was attached now to a second unit. They call me. They say, and this unit is a commando unit that only does Gaza and Lebanon. They say, hey, we have Gaza in 48 hours. Are you coming? So I had to look at my wife and say, baby, Gaza's coming up, right? But I promise I won't go to Lebanon, right? And when Lebanon happens, I will probably say, look, I promise I won't go to Syria.
Yes.
So it's like I said, my wife, part of it is that she has grown up in this type of a family. Her father was in the service for a long time in Israel. She has a lot of relatives, cousins that are in the service. She's used to it. She's used to the character that is me. When she spoke with my father and he told her, listen, can you please, how is it that you're letting him go? And she said, listen, I fell in love with a soldier. I married a soldier. What am I going to do? So again, this is one of these things that for her, all of us, like I said at the beginning, independently, we are contending with things on our own, trying to process and trying to figure it out. And she has the weight of the world on her shoulders with the notion that I'm going into Gaza. And with that said, though, I can't keep things from her. I can't, I share everything with her. It's just a relationship that we have. And so for me, there isn't anything that once I was back in the service, there's nothing that I sugarcoated. There's nothing that I would, paint that was any differently. When we got our briefing and I got to speak with her, this is the upcoming mission that we have. Here's where we're going. This is what we're doing, right? to me, I mean, there would be obviously the words of encouragement, of support, of I love you and I'm with you, and praying for you. But I also know that for her, when we would hang up the phone, as I would go and I would start to carry this burden on me of, God, please, I don't want my kids and my wife to be like so many of the soldiers' families that I'm seeing right now. That they've lost their father and their husbands, and I know that Simone would also go off to her corner and would contend with that as well. I'm very, I don't know the word I'm looking for. I'm very optimistic. I'm very confident that my wife and I, we have a lot of life still to do together. We have a lot that we want to do, and there's a lot that we have yet to do together. We were brought together in life. We knew each other since we were little kids, but our lives went, very separate directions, and we were brought together very, very late in life. And so I'm very confident that Hashem still has a very long road for us together in life, and that's something that that kind of is the foundation of the confidence, I'll call it, that I do what I do, with.
You're crazy about your wife, eh?
She's everything. She's.
Well, what is she like? What is she like as a person?
I'll sum it up to you this way here. My wife's life work is in the art craft of healing. She was a professional athlete her whole life, in bodybuilding and fitness and martial arts. By education, she was a nutritionist. And everything she has ever done in life has been to heal people.
Yes.
And she always says, if she could have one superpower, me, I'm a typical guy. If I could have a superpower, I'd want Superman's flying, I'd want Spider-Man's, this, all the nonsense. Yeah. Her only wish in life, if she could have one superpower, is that she could take pain away from anybody. Any hurt that she is feeling, she could take that away from them. I've never in my life met anybody that was so devoted and committed to the happiness and the well-being of others. Yes. And it's something that we get here at home as well. Every single one of us. She lives for all of us. She's a very, very strong woman. Very strong woman. What you see on the outside is the reflection of how she is on the inside. But she's very, very in tune with a lot of the things that people take for granted in life. She's very intelligent. She's got a great sense of humor. She's just as beautiful of a human being as they can get. And I am forever grateful and blessed that she was the one that was made for me.
Do you feel like you're good enough for her?
No, never.
Which is a good sign of a relationship when you say no, by the way. That's what I think. Because then you have to work your way up, right?
Sure. Yeah. Look, it's been in my life. I've never had to face a mirror. I have never had a necessity to become a better person. If I didn't like where I was, I pack up and I go. If things start getting too uncomfortable, I pack up and I go. So there was a lot to my life that I also lived kind of fake. I wasn't living truthfully. Yes. Because of that. And my wife changed all that for me. And in the sense of not, forcing me to be a certain way, in the sense of we would obviously, like every couple, you have your moments where you're head to head, where you're fighting, where you're argument. And generally where I would run out the door and never come back, I would resolve to that instinct. But the moment that I would be a few steps away from home, be like, what am I doing? That's my home. The only thing I ever wanted to do that would defeat my instinct to run was my desire to come back home to her. Yes. So I've learned a lot. I have changed a lot in a way that I just couldn't be more grateful, like to be able to understand where I'm at today. That has made me a better person, a better husband, a better father. I'm very grateful to have had this opportunity. You really get to enjoy life more, I think, when you're seeing it through these different lenses and you are forcing yourself to be better, you know?
When you mentioned your father before, and he said to your wife, how is it that you're letting Nir go? Can you tell me about when you left right before you went to the airport? You saw your father. I have this vision of him hugging you and crying. He himself was in the IDF. He himself was a martial arts expert as well. How did he respond to you leaving? I mean, you're 47 years old.
Look, so this opens up another can of things here. I have not had a relationship with my father for the past almost 15 years.
Yeah.
And that relationship was just reignited as of a couple of days before I went back for my second term to Gaza. Grew up in a household full of many challenges.
Yes.
Individually, my mother and my father, they came from very challenging lives, and they came together. And it's also a lot of that generation, the old school generation, that it's not like today where there's a lot more understanding and resources. And I think it's more, I don't know what to call it, but more kind of in fashion to get connected with your feelings and to face the troubles and work through them. Back then, in those generations, that wasn't the case. We grew up with a lot of issues at home. And it was a very defragmented household and family. And a lot of my going away, it was just like my father's. It wasn't going because I was drawn to something. It was running away from where I was. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of kind of a constellation of things that had occurred that led to the point where I just stopped having a relationship with most of my family. And it was one of my father's uncles from France came to visit. I think it was the day after I had arrived, after my first tour of service, that one of my cousins, who was the son of this particular uncle, learned through Facebook that I was back home, and my uncle was here for 3 weeks, and he had a couple more days to go before going back. He said, "Hey, Nir's in town, give him a call." So he called me, and my wife went to pick him up from my father's place because it just it'd be a little awkward after almost 15 years to just go pick up my uncle to bring him over, So my wife offered; she knew where my head was at. He came over. His name was Danny, and we sat down. We spoke, and he looked at me and he said, "Listen, it's time. It's really time. You're not wrong in how you see things and feel things, but there's so much more. Everybody has their side to the story, and it's just time to reconnect." And so we did. I'm very grateful for that. And
can I ask you, and if this is too private, I apologize.
Okay.
When you saw him, when you greeted one another after 15 years, what happened?
Obviously we embraced, we hugged, and then we went right back to our Israeli Moroccan macho roots. Okay,
right.
You come have a seat. You want a drink?
Yeah.
Okay, it was. I think that there's a lot of I don't know how to put it. There was a lot of emotions there, but there's a lot of emotions there. Yes, I wouldn't say that they came up to the surface in the way of how we showed it, but it was very clear that we were both very grateful. And the past is the past, and
good for you.
Building the future. He's been remarried. He's got a wonderful wife. Our kids. The most beautiful thing about it is there's nothing like family. There's nothing like, it's just the most precious gift that we're given. And so to all of a sudden now have our kids have another set of grandparents, it's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Did your mom pass?
No,
Is she still with us?
Yes.
Okay. Are you close with her at all?
There's
a story there. Okay.
No.
I gotcha. Can I share with you something about my life?
Please.
My father died when he was 61 years old in 1989. And really, when I started into my teen years, I think my father had a very difficult time dealing with my individuating. You know what I mean by that? You start to come into your own. You say what's on your mind. You're no longer daddy's little guy, at least not in total. And after that, our relationship went south. And I was about 28 when he passed away. And as I said, he was 61. And we really never got it together like you did. So he died, us being very, very far apart. So, as a brother to you, as a fellow Jew, as a fellow human being, as a man, I'm really happy for you. I'm really happy for you and your dad. I really am.
Thank you. I'll say that the situation that our people are going through, our nation is going through, it's very unique in so many different ways. I've never experienced this much loss in one short time span. I've never had to really be forced to connect with how precious life is and, what loss means. And everywhere I look around me, I mean, October 8th, 5 teammates from my home unit were killed. I get to Israel December 29th. A very good friend who is a Sarma Reserve police officer in the United States and a very, very close friend who's a sergeant in our department there gets killed in an ambush in Georgia in the U.S. And it's like everywhere I'm looking around, it's like, my God, every time we would get news every other day of a unit, a team, a soldier getting killed in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Lebanon, around me, it would be guaranteed that somebody that I'm with would know a person, would know one of the soldiers that was killed, would somehow be connected. And I just got to the point where I don't want that anymore. I don't want to experience that around me anymore. It's hard. It's very, very hard. And so the counterbalance to that, when you get to see the beautiful things in life that happen, when you get to build relationships, when you get to, see smiles and moments of joy, that helps to keep the light on all the darkness. And so I strive for that. I strive for that these days, everywhere where I can find it,
When you are saddened by the loss of friends, like Ellie, whom we'll speak about later, was a dear friend of yours, is that sadness as deep as the happiness you get from coming home and being with your 5 children? We know kids. You have a 4-year-old. 4-year-olds are nuts. They can't help but make you laugh, So like you said, do the two in fact balance out?
It's a very good question. I had a point in my life where I struggled with PTSD. And I think till today, I can still say that, a lot of these marks that we pick up in life that get inscribed on our being, they never go away. You can never delete them. It's a matter of understanding how you confront them, how you contend with them. And it's a matter of investing more in what brings you light than what takes it away. And then I think eventually it just naturally, organically, you have more positivity, more reasons for being happy, more things that will trigger happiness in you that just naturally happen, that the dark stuff doesn't have as many cracks to seep through anymore. And reach. I don't know to compare one against the other and to understand really or to know, because I've never really explored that, but how one counteracts the other. But I do know that it's easier for me to forget more of the things that cause sadness in my life because of the amount of joy and happiness that I do have every day. I hug my kids, I wrap my arms around them, I close my eyes, I take it in. I live right there. I feel their little bodies on me. I feel skin against skin, and that is just all I think about. I take it into a point, like I said, that I make sure that it registers, that it's not just something that happens in passing. And I don't know. I had a very difficult time. at the beginning, the first couple months, even speaking about a lot of the things that have occurred and maintaining my composure. I would feel the emotions along with the words and the thoughts all at once. And I would cry a lot. And where I'm at today is I can contend, or I can face a lot of these things with more composure. I don't cry as much when I speak about them, for example. And I know that a huge function of that is, again, it's all the things of happiness and purpose that I have on the other side of the scale.
Did you cry by yourself?
Yeah.
Would you cry with your wife?
Oh, yeah.
And she's good with it? Does she cry as well when you cry? Yeah. I want to take a step back. Are you okay?
I am.
Okay. At any point, just say, Avrum, you're pushing it too much. I'm good with that.
It's all good. There's where it was a point in my life where tears would always be a reflection of sad things going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things. That a lot of the tears that I shed these days are because of the gratefulness and the joy of realizing all these wonderful things that I have as well. So they're not all tears of sadness.
I want to take a step back. I want to understand something about your decision to go to Israel and fight in Hebron and fight in Gaza. You're a 47-year-old man. You have incredible resume. You have incredible tools that you've developed. You've been referred to as a world expert on Krav Maga, which is a martial arts developed around the 40s by an Israeli, by a Polish Israeli, and it's being used around the world, and it's quite sophisticated. So you could take care of yourself. What I want to understand, Nir, is you're a father of 5. You're a husband. You're a born soldier, as you said before. You made a very clear decision that you were prepared to, let's say, to be dramatic here a little bit, to make the soldier side of you after October 7th the predominant side. I'm going to guess, tell me if I'm correct, chas v'chalila, God forbid, but going into a situation like that, it seems to me you are prepared to die. What I'm curious about is how that decision is made, in the wee hours of the night, where you say to yourself, yeah, I'm going to make that decision. I'm prepared to take on whatever happens, and my fatherhood is still intact, but for now, I have to leave it aside as much as I would prefer to because I need to fight. How did you make the decision to be a soldier more important, if you will, or more predominant, really is probably a better way of saying it, than staying put here and being a father?
I'll try to answer the best that I can. I don't know that I myself fully have the answers to that. It's difficult for me to sit and to try to compare being a soldier or being a husband and a father. It doesn't seem right to me. You know what I mean? I would never put my family second to anything. I didn't become a soldier again I always was one. It's what I've done best my whole life. It's how I always knew to be in every aspect of life. But the decision was to go and put the uniform on again and to go back into that role. Number one, this situation, this war, this attack on us, this second Holocaust that we're facing, it, I think, is greater than any of us. It's greater than everything else that we have right now. And, you know, the difference between the Holocaust of today and of the 1940s is back then we didn't have a country, we didn't have an army, we didn't have a community. Today we do. And there is a part of it that's a responsibility that I do feel that I came as far as I did with being a soldier for the country, and I have to do my part to ensuring that we have a country. Us having a strong Israel, us having a strong image, us standing up for all of us also affects the rest of our community around the world. I didn't know how to contend. I didn't know how to contend with, you know, obviously the first thing that hit my mind is, how am I going to go back now? I'm drawn to it. I know that it's where I need to be. I know it's what I was meant to do, but at the same token, I need to be here with my family, and I'm meant to also be a family man. I didn't know how to contend with that, and I still don't really know. I'm grateful that, again, all the parts came together to make it happen. You know, I've spent 27 years in serving and protecting, in policing, in security, in the military. So as it was, even while I was already a husband and a father, I still put on a uniform every day and went to work in a profession in law enforcement where officers get killed every day, where it was very dangerous. So that aspect of it really wasn't absent. There was still that risk factor. It just never had as much of a purpose, a meaning, not just to me, but for, you know, the greater whole of our entire nation as now. If my wife would have said to me, "You're not going anywhere," I don't know if I would have. I don't know. You know, probably not, but I don't know. And so I don't know to fully answer that question. I just knew immediately that the calling was there, that I needed to be there along with everybody else. And I had faith, I had trust that everything was going to be okay. We're in God's hands and everything would be fine. And that's the most I know to answer your question right now.
Okay. It's a good answer, by the way, because you're right. You don't separate the two. I hear you. I dated a Yemenite woman in Israel, and we were engaged. Her name is Sarit, a lovely human being. And she once told me, she said, "Avrum, ata pachtan." And you know something? I've carried that with me, Nir, for many years. That means you're a frightened person. You're a scaredy cat. And you know something? I am a scaredy cat. I'm scared of a lot. You know, the other day I saw a guy parking in a handicapped spot, and I had to grapple in my head as to whether I was going to go over to him and say something or not. And I kind of justified him parking there. Maybe he does have a handicap sticker. I didn't see it, but I didn't go. And I didn't go because I was scared of the confrontation. What fascinates me about you and your life and your chaverim, your friends, your colleagues in the tzava, chayalim, chayalot, is your willingness to be scared and to confront. How scared do you get, Nir? And how does it play out? And how do you move forward with that fear?
So first of all, I don't think that it's possible to be a human and not experience all forms of emotion, including fear. It's just not possible, and there's nothing wrong with it. Period. I had a huge part of my life where even in the onset of my journey into my service, that was my 20s, that I would get scared to confront things. It's different today. Yes, I register the fear. I have the things that I can say why it is that I'm fearful. Going out on a mission, I'm fearful of not coming home to my wife and my kids. I get fearful of my fellow teammates getting injured or killed. I'm fearful of not succeeding in our mission. And I do feel that. I think that there's, one aspect to this is that all of us are created with a purpose. All of us are created with a purpose. I truly do believe that. And your emotions are always going to be correct for what your purpose is. Everything that happens in your life will be correct for what your purpose is. Not everybody out there is meant to, created to, and should go and confront violence. It's a very dangerous proposition, especially in this day and age with everything that is going on out there. And these days, you have a lot of people that get senselessly killed because they go and they confront the guy who parked in the handicap spot. There's no absent reason as to why you would or should feel scared about confrontation these days. It's a smart thing. And so we can't judge people by what they feel when it's congruent with what they're facing. I remember what created in me the desire, the necessity to become a warrior, a fighter. I remember that moment. I was 12 years old, and it happened right here in Toronto. I went to Willowdale Middle School on Senlac, and I was in grade 6. I had a best friend at that time, Damon, who was in grade 7, and in grade 8, there were a group of these 4 neo-Nazis, complete neo-Nazis. A shaved head. They would come to school with swastikas drawn on their clothing. They were bullies. 2 of them were already on their way out the door of being expelled by the school system. This is back in 80, whatever it was, mid-80s, I think. And they picked on me and Damon all the time. It was the worst case of bullying that I'd ever experienced in life, to the point that the police had to get involved. And there was a moment one day after school where Damon and me left the school to go catch the bus. We were standing at the bus stop. In between the school and the bus stop is the Senlac convenience store, this little house of a convenience store that every student would go in there. And as we're standing there, I remember hearing the chimes of the door go off, and Damon and me turn and we look, and there was about 20 to 25 of these skinheads that came walking out the store, led by the 2 ringleaders. I won't say their name only because hopefully they've turned their lives around, and so I don't want to, mar their names with any bad things from the past. However, they saw us and they started walking towards us. And Damon and me looked at each other and we said, "Look, I think we're screwed. We can't run back to the school now. I don't know what we're going to do." So they surrounded us. And there was one of them who had his beef with Damon. One had his beef with me. And Damon was older than me. The other one was older. And they started negotiating about fighting. And Damon said, "Look, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to fight you here when you got 20 other friends that are going to jump us. So if you want, Nir, myself, you, and your associate, let's get on a bus. Let's go somewhere with just the 4 of us, and we'll fight." And while they're doing this, this cordial debate, negotiation, the other one is kicking me in the legs. He's just doesn't want to spend more time on negotiating here. And finally, they had enough. They engulfed us, and we took a beating. Half of them grabbed me. They took me around this fence. I took a beating of my life over there. It was the most scared I've ever been. I collapsed to the floor because somebody kicked me in the chest, and that is what saved me. I was able to crawl out from between their legs. I got up and I stormed right back to the school. Mr. Graham, the vice principal back then, as soon as he saw me come walk into the office, I was disheveled, ripped clothes, blood. He looked at me right away. He mentioned their 2 names. I said yes, and they're out there right now. Damon is getting beat up. Please go help him. So he told me to sit down. He called the police. And I remember sitting there feeling the most amount of fear I've ever experienced in my life. A short while later, a Toronto police officer comes walking in, and I was sitting at the sofa right by the entrance to the office, and his legs come standing right next to me. I look over, I see the black pants with the red stripe, and I, look up, and for me, it was as if his head was in the clouds. This guy was a monster of a man. And he looks down at me, takes his glasses off, and then he walks over to Mr. Graham's office. They chat for a few seconds. He comes back out, and he said, so these guys gave you a beating, did they, son? I said, yes, they did. They said, come on, let's go find them. I remember when he said that to me, all the fear went away. I never felt as safe as I did in that moment. And the first thing that struck me was that in this world every day, there are little scaredy cats like Nir who get confronted by evil and who feel that fear. And then there are people like this officer who step in between them and evil and make their fear go away. And that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be that guy that can take the fear away from people. And I told myself that right that same day, I'm going to grow up. I'm going to be big. I'm going to be tall. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be a Terminator or a Robocop. I'm going to be everything and do all the things. And that's where my journey kind of began. With that, physically, I developed myself very quickly with martial arts, with shooting, with tactics. I was always very, very good at all those things. But the fear was still always there. Again, confrontations, and I would tremble. The fear would be there. It took a long time and a lot of things to happen in my life where I could kind of take that fear and I can put it aside for the time being to deal with what I need to deal with. And that's where I'm at these days. It's not that I don't feel fear. Sometimes it comes before, sometimes it comes after a situation or an event. But I guess there's just a lot of, got to a point in life as well where I learned to be invest more in my desire to confront evil and eradicate it than to succumb to how it is. It makes me view it and fear it. And that's kind of where I hover at these days. So I think the fear that I feel is different. It is present in different ways than it will be in somebody who, quite frankly, has a different purpose in life and has not signed up or was created to be a soldier, to be a police officer, to do those things. And that's normal. That only makes sense to me. I don't know if I answered your question. I actually forgot what the original question was, but
no, you did very well. I just want to extend the question a little bit. So you're in Gaza, you were in Khan Yunis,
mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yep.
And you have to go into a school or a hospital or a house, an apartment. You talked extensively in interviews that you did about, boy, oh boy, like everything is booby trapped there. You touch a door handle, boom, it could go off. You try to go through a window, similarly, it can go off. So just tell me, based on what you just said, whether you have a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and you got a bunch of guys with you, what are the machinations in your head as you approach that area that you have to take over, that you have to defeat? What are you thinking?
A lot of all the what ifs, they happen before the door to the APC, the Al-Zarit. It's an armored personnel carrier, okay, that transports us into these regions. Before that door opens up, the moment it opens up, the game plan is already in place, and you are simply functioning on what you need to do according to the plan and to the mission at hand. There is, so Gaza is divided up into kind of 3 sects: North, Central, and South. And all 3 of them have their 3 unique threat types, modalities that we face. Northern Gaza, Sajaiya area, you're dealing with a lot of RPGs and anti-tank missiles. The South, Fiach, their specialty is snipers, long-range, engagement. And in Central, Khan Yunis, it's all explosives. When the IDF moved in the initial incursion into Gaza from the north, Hamas and all the other factions started to prepare Central Gaza. They knew that was going to be next. So that's already where a lot of all the IIDs were starting to get placed. So you carry that with you. That's the scariest part out of all. I think that the scariest out of all of them is facing an IID. You have 0 time to contend with that. And if you're facing it, you're already within that radius of its effective range. And you many times it's hard to tell what an IED is. Bombs can be made to look like anything. They be concealed as anything. So that's also what makes it very scary. So you have to, first of all, come to grips with certain aspects to say, look, I signed up for this. I'm here. Reason why I'm doing this is because this is my profession. This is what the Army trained me to do. And I need to now take all the stuff that is not in my control and I got to put it aside. And then you got to rely on all the intelligence, what you do know, and how you prepare yourself and your soldiers to function in the most optimal way to identify issues before you trigger them and to circumvent what might happen. And if, God forbid, something happens, how you deal with it in that moment. Your mind cannot be preoccupied with anything else. And I think that I speak the same for any other profession that has such a sensitive role. If we take a brain surgeon, I don't know, anything along those lines, a pilot who's airplane, you got some unbelievable, I love the world of aviation. I think in a previous life I was a pilot. I study, flight, and I love watching shows about air disasters. And there are some unbelievable incidents that have occurred, of airplanes starting to fall out of the sky. And these pilots have 60 seconds to go through manuals, to troubleshoot, to try to fight to get the aircraft back under control, prevent it from crashing and killing 100 to 300 people. Yeah. And, you have people out there that are doing heroic work in all aspects of life. And the things that I have to contend with that have such fine tolerances and that can have such great outcomes, that is also true to so many other professions out there. So, that's at the end of the day, I think what makes a professional very good at what they're doing is that they can just pack up that human side of it, put it aside, and hope that they have learned everything that they need to contend and to remedy the problem that they're faced with in that moment and to do the best that they can. At the end of the day, that's all you can do is do the best that you can. So the only thing that goes through my mind, and I know through the minds of all my other teammates, at the moment that we hit the ground, is that we all know our role, we know how to do our job, and we do it. If we can all individually focus on all the details that we have to do, we know that on a macro level, everybody else will be good. The mission will go fine. And, and you see that actually happen in the field. You see guys, suddenly you're glancing over and you see something that is a potential threat. And all of a sudden you see your teammate's barrel come over your shoulder and cover. And, without even having to talk, that things happen. Everybody is a professional. And in that moment, you take notice of that. It makes me feel great. It just, it's amazing to see everybody doing their role as effectively as possible. And that's all there is to it.
Near the way you describe the situation, it's very economical, it's very efficient, it's very professional. But I think it's safe to say, and of course, tell me if you agree with me. From what I understand, I've never been in war, but from what I understand, it follows the rule of the animal kingdom. It's crazy, right? That's what everybody says. You haven't been in war, you don't get it. Is there an animal side to you as well?
In animal side, sorry, to me.
Yeah.
Did you ask?
Yes. Do you have to
I'm like
call
a big,
upon that side?
well, I mean, let me ask you, what does that mean, an animal side?
I don't know. I don't know what it means because I've never been in war, but I'm guessing when the shit hits the fan, an RPG comes your way or a building blows up and you're there with all your boys, I'm going to guess that many of these rules fall by the wayside and you just start clamoring to fix things.
Okay, so let me just quickly latch on to that very last statement, that things fall by the wayside. I think it's actually the opposite. Here's the thing, and I've been in very, very close situations, and I have, as a soldier, as a commander, as an instructor for such a long time, I have had also the benefit of debriefing and of listening to a lot a lot of students and colleagues who have been in some unbelievably scary situations. So the one thing that I know that is a constant is that you have two choices. I don't know if it's a choice. I'll use that word loosely for right now. Maybe I'll correct myself at the end of my thought here. You can either let everything go and fall into what your natural human instincts might be, or you can do the job that needs to be done. You have soldiers that will go one way or the other. You have regular civilians that will go one way or the other. You look at a lot of stories. Let's go to October 7th. Look at all of the heroic stories that have come out of civilians who picked up guns, who sat there and picked up grenades that were thrown at them to throw back at the terrorists.
Yeah, to throw them back at. Yeah.
Who does that? So, excuse me, I can tell you, and even having debriefed some of the situations that have occurred since October 7th and in this war, some of the combat scenarios that have occurred, there were soldiers in special units that October 7th, October 8th, 9th, 10th, and all the fighting in the South had to be evacuated due to them mentally and emotionally shutting down, due to them going into shell shock, due to them being too afraid to be there. And these are soldiers that have gone through, I know the training that they went through. It's the most difficult of all training. And there's a lot of aspects of the training that rewrites your DNA, but it can never take your instincts away. So, it doesn't matter the uniform that the person is wearing, or if they're not in a uniform. You have situations that will sometimes take a person and smack them in the face and say, you have a choice now. You either live or you die. What do you want to do? And they act, even without having the rudimentary skills and the know-how. They will still fight. They will attack the terrorists. They'll pick up the guns. They'll pick up the grenades to throw back, And then conversely, you have that in every other profession, in policing, in the military, of the warriors who are trained to be warriors. And unfortunately, training doesn't mean that it suddenly makes a blank canvas out of you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. There could be parts from each one of those that's missing, and that single part is what your whole machine runs on, and it's absent where it needs to be, so everything falls apart. So I have had bullets fly right by my head. I've had that happen quite a few times in life. I've had knives that I have faced. I've had explosions go off right around the corner from me. I have fortunately never been blown up. Other than a ricochet bullet, I've never been shot directly. I've been shot at many times. I've had enough situations to sit there and envision, God forbid, if I get blown up, what am I going to do? I know people who have, and who have had limbs that were lost, and you're still in the fight. The terrorist isn't going to stop. If the terrorist is alive and the terrorist took you out of commission, you're now a bleeding animal, and that terrorist is going to sniff that out. And his job, we wake up every day and we pray to God to go back home to our families at the end of the day. These terrorists wake up on the day that they bring us a fight and they say, God, today I'm coming to you. That's the battlefield that you're already contending with. So you have to understand to contend with yourself. There's a lot of these, I call them contracts, you have to make with yourself. Not when the bomb goes off and the bullet hits you. You already have to have answers for that before. You have to already start to live side by side with these possibilities, because that's your chosen profession. It can happen. And if you don't have these questions answered before they happen, it's too late to make a plan when you need the plan. I'll tell you, I remember when I first learned to contend with fear in my life. And it was not too long after I had this attack by these neo-Nazis. That really scared me. I was a very scared kid by nature, inside me. I was a good fighter. I could do the kicks. I was very fancy. People would see me. They're like, wow, that guy doesn't fear anything. But I was petrified, a shaking leaf inside. When somebody would talk to me in a confrontational way, I would shut down. I remember, I think I was around 13 years old. I used to love watching horror movies growing up as a kid. All the 80s horror movies, Halloween, Friday the 13th. And the one character out of all of them that scared me was always Jason from the Friday the 13th series. Now, we lived at Goldfinch Court, if you know it, Finch and Bathurst area, and there was this ravine at the back that we always used to play at. Okay,
I know it well. I know it well.
All of us do.
I went to school there. I went to the yeshiva, and I used to go down that ravine. In fact, I was looking at it the other day. So yes, I know that. I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, it's all good. So it was a ravine that had a little bit of an eeriness to it. And there's all kinds of stories of things in the 80s that happened, and other stories that were probably these, kind of witch stories that you would hear about things going on in the ravine. But there was always, I loved being there when I was with my friends, but standing at the top of the hill from our building, the whole back of the building, there was a field, and then there was the hills that go into the ravine. Whenever I would stand there and stare down there, it would scare me. It was an eerie place. I remember that I used to have these reoccurring dreams. And in these dreams, what would happen is I'd be with my friends playing in the back of the building, 12 Goldfinch Court. And it would always be playing ball. And my friends would always be on one side, and I'd be by myself. And they would throw the ball, and I would miss it. I would miss the catch. And I would have to turn around to go and get it. And when I would get the ball, and I would turn back to face my friends, they were gone. I could see them disappearing, running away. And the blue sky started becoming black, these black clouds rolling in. And it got to the point where this dream was so reoccurring that I could, in my dream, tell myself, oh God, here we go again. I know exactly what's going to happen. That's how well, in tune I was with this dream. And then what would happen, I would start to get sucked towards the ravine. My feet, I would try to walk away, run away, but I couldn't. And I would get sucked to the ravine, and then I would start to slide down the hill, and I couldn't stop it. And then when I would turn to look at the bottom of the ravine, I would see Jason from Friday the 13th standing there with a machete.
Oh.
And he would start to walk towards me. And it was the scariest thing I ever felt. And then last minute, before he could reach up and put his hands on me, I would wake up. And it happened all the time like that until one day, I had the dream. The ball flew over my head. I'm like, here we go. I know it's about. I get the ball, turn around, my friends will be gone, the sky will be black, and I'm going down the ravine. So everything happened as per cue. And I would start to go down the ravine. And what made it different, I don't know what, but what made it different on this particular time was, instead of me facing up, trying to claw my way to climb back up to the blue light and to freedom or safety, I stopped, I stood up, I turned around, and I stared Jason right in the eyes as I was going down, getting sucked down. And I said, that's it. If this is how it's going to be, it's how it's going to be. And I remember feeling this little bit of confidence, and all of a sudden, He goes to reach his hand to grab me like he always does, and I started to fly. And I flew over top of him. And the sun came out. The sky was blue. He shrunk. He disappeared. And I felt so confident. Yeah. And I remember waking up and saying, wow, there's something to just facing your fear. Later on in life, I had a lot of incredible martial arts instructors. And I remember learning the lesson from one of them of, listen, you want to deal with fear and not fall apart, you have to live with it. You can't shut it off. You can't get rid of it. You can't turn around and run away from it. The only way that you can contend with it is you have to take it all, and you have to now give it an identity, create it. Think about everything that goes on in your mind and in your heart and in your soul that makes you the most scared in life. Give it a face, give it a name, create it. And you're going to take it and you're going to stick it in a box. And every day you're going to open that box, you're going to take this fear out, and it's going to become your pet. You're going to look at it and you're going to sit there and you're going to embrace it. And then start to think about what you would do if you ever actually encountered that fear. How would you behave? How would you react? What do you want the outcome to be? And I started doing that. And it started to work. It would just get to the point that, again, you have to also understand in life that nothing is guaranteed. You can be the greatest fighter in the world, the most trained soldier, police officer, and that day, unfortunately, was your day. That there's nothing you could do, and that's it. Those are things in life we have no control over. But the rest of it we do. And so you start to become comfortable with fear. If you then go empower yourself, you start to arm yourself with skills and with tools to be able to, if it's fight or to survive, you'll be a lot more comfortable. You will know what to do. A lot of times people are scared because they don't know what to do. When you know what to do, there's already half the battle. A lot of people, they see somebody who is scary, they see a fight go on, and they think that is so scary. If I was attacked, that'd be a scary thing because look at what that bad guy can do. But you realize very quickly that the majority of all these bad guys in life, they don't know what to do. They're cowards. They can't fight. They know how to be predators, and they know how to victimize. However, if the victim simply switches the role, because a lot of victims, they assume responsibilities. Everybody assumes their position in life. Because a predator comes into your life and says, I'm the predator, you're the prey, a lot of people say, okay, so let's play that game. That's how we're going to role play. It's up to you to decide what role you play. That's the way that it goes. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it too many times in good 30 years of my life of when a victim decides, no. You think you're the predator? I'm also a predator. It changes the playing field. Go back and look at, for example, nature shows, National Geographic, and you always see the tiger, the lion, the cheetah, the hyenas chasing some big, huge hippopotamus, a rhino, a buffalo. And you wonder yourself, that buffalo outweighs that lion by a lot. Why is it that the lion is chasing it? Because the buffalo says, I'm your food. And then you see the clips of when the buffalo says, I don't think so, not today. And they beat the hell out of the lion, and the lion runs away. It's the same thing. And I have learned that. I have learned that in life. And this is part of when I train people for survival. Civilians, police officers, special forces soldiers. You have to start with the inside. The outside is the easiest thing to teach you how to punch and how to kick and how to shoot. Forget that. You can learn that from YouTube. That's easy. But if on the inside, you have not determined whether you're a prey or a predator, and you have not embraced that, and you have not now packaged that up the way I said, your magnificent skills won't have a chance to survive in a real confrontation. So, that's how I contend with things. We go into Gaza. In Operation Cast Lead in 2008, 2009, we went into Gaza. Hamas was starting to evolve into what they were today, into a military organization. What made them different then, they had uniforms. In Operation Cast Lead, they started practicing military formation, military tactics, and they were boasting about the fact that they even look like soldiers. Black tactical uniforms with vests and with their hats. We went into Gaza. The first thing that we started finding were uniforms and combat equipment scattered everywhere. They jumped out of their uniforms and they ran because they didn't want to confront us. It's the same now in Khan Yunis. I have plenty of videos of all the different paraphernalia and propaganda that we would find, and we would find tons of uniforms everywhere, vests, tactical uniforms. Now, what's made it different? Operation Cast Lead, Hamas, all these terrorists, these criminals, they're cowards. They're as coward as they get. When you get your hands on them, they cry like little babies. They beg you for forgiveness. Let me go. I will help you. I will talk. Back then, that's what it was all about. Today, unfortunately, that still rings true, but a lot of the discarded uniforms as well has become part of their propaganda war, which is their most powerful weapon against us. That's how they can affect us without even touching us. So, you look at all of these ridiculous statistics of the civilian casualty rate in Gaza, which is overinflated by at least 50% to be on the conservative side of things. And the reason for that is that all the bodies that are around are wearing civilian clothing. Hamas learned, don't die as a terrorist. Let the cameras see you in civilian clothing. So that's part of also why they discard a lot of all their military paraphernalia. But I think I kind of digressed a little bit on that. In this world, you choose the role that you play. If God has things written for us, there's nothing we can do about it. But until we meet that frontier, we're in control of much more than we give ourselves credit for. And that's really, it's how simple it is.
While you were speaking magnificently, by the way, you managed to answer so many of my questions in one fell swoop. I really felt love for you, I really did.
Thank you.
I felt love, as a Jew. I really sincerely do. So thank you.
Sorry, just everybody in listen, I'm just a regular Jew who's been wandering the world for 47 years.
Yeah.
And I've been on a path, and I've been blessed by having so many great instructors and teachers and experiences that have contributed to everything that I am blessed to be today. So that thank you goes out, not just to me, which I sincerely thank you for, but to anybody who's contributed to me being what I've turned out to be.
Which is very gracious of you. I think what I'm trying to say here is that I am a pachtan. I am afraid. And I love what you had to say. And I'm going to teach that to my son. Are you the predator or are you otherwise? It's outstanding what you just said. But I feel incredible amounts of safety, really, security, knowing that you're the warrior. Really, I do. I feel such a great sense of we, the Jewish people, are a powerful people because we have a guy like Nir Maman who is who he is. You're a wonderful human being.
I truly appreciate that. There are thousands like me in Israel. We're very grateful. We have incredible military. We have incredible soldiers. I sit there, especially in reserves, when you get to sit there with guys and you have a guy who's a carpenter, you have a guy who's a special needs, special education teacher, you have a guy who's a cook, you have a guy who's a builder, and then we're all in the same uniform and we're all going into the same building to go fight terrorists that might blow up. And I sit back and I take it all in. I look at their faces. I study their faces. I study their purpose. I study their mannerisms. I look at how my guys smoke a cigarette, how they take a sip of their coffee. I like to study people. I like the why behind things. I like when there's purpose behind things. And I remember sitting before one of our missions and looking at all my guys and just watching, I know that what's going on through their mind is the same as what's going on through my mind. Yesterday, And these are all real examples of professions that they do. Yesterday, this brother of mine was a teacher in a school for kids with special needs. Today, he's a commando who in a couple minutes from now is boarding an APC, is going to go into a building with terrorists. And it's a special thing to be a part of and to be able to see. So we have a lot of great, great people in this world and in our community that are protecting our nation. And it's a beautiful thing.
I want to wrap up the interview talking about one of those people. You have a fascination with knives, and you have a collection of about 300 knives. Some of worth $300, $400, other worth $20. You have a friend who had a friend by the name of Ellie, who was a soldier and who was killed on October 8th. Tell us about Ellie. What was he like? He also had a fascination with knives.
Yes. So Ellie was about 5 years younger than I was. When I served in my last term of full-time active duty service, I served my home unit as the counter-terror unit, which is also the IDF's counter-terror school. We're in charge of everything related to counterterrorism for the entire Israeli Defense Force. I had several roles in the unit. One of them, I was in charge of the hostage rescue section of the school. I was in charge of training our three main hostage rescue units in the IDF, Severyn, Shayet 13, which is our Navy SEALs, and Lotar Eilat, which is the counter-terror hostage rescue unit for the whole region of Eilat in the south. So I cross paths with Ellie quite often because of the nature of my role in the unit. He was a Navy SEAL. He grew up in our Navy SEALs. That's where he served for about a good 20 years. When he concluded his service in our Navy SEALs, he became commander of the counter-terror unit. And that is where our relationship kind of reconnected with a lot of things. And now, so to start off with, what Ellie was like, I'll tell you the one thing that everybody says that is congruent right across the board is Ellie is a guy. Doesn't matter who you are. If he knew you for 5 years, if he knew you for 5 minutes, you sit with him and you feel like you are one of the most special people in his life. And it's sincere. It's not that he's pandering to anybody. He was such a golden individual. He had such a golden heart. His smile is a smile. You look at his pictures and you look at his videos, when he smiles at you, you feel the connection with him. He was a very special human being. As tough as nails. One heck of a fighter and a warrior. Would run towards any little sound of danger, no matter how small or how big. He'd be the first one, boots on the ground, running towards it. And that's how Ellie was as a person. For everybody, there was a role, and he would not let go of anybody. If there was somebody who needed help, if there was somebody that he could somehow help, he would adopt you, and he would find a way to help you. And I have a lot of great stories about that. We reconnected. Excuse me. We have every special unit has its association, and the association is designed to help all the veterans of the unit, the alumni. So I became our unit's association for North and South America, and did a lot of activities with our association and trying to support and help all of our veterans. And several years ago, Avichai, who was he was the deputy head of our association. Roy Negri, he was one of our guys that was killed in October 7th in Kibbutz Be'eri. He was the head of our association. And they came to me and they said, listen, you are the biggest proponent of the unit that we have outside of Israel. You promote the unit everywhere. You're an incredible representation of the unit. help us do things, help us get the name out. We're trying to attract recruits. And I made these coins. I had patches and coins, and a lot of paraphernalia of our unit that I make, that I travel with anytime I go for service in policing in the States, when I go teach courses that I hand down. I'm very, very proud of our unit, and I show it. So when Ellie took over as commander of the unit, I think it was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now. I don't remember exactly. Avichai came to me and said, and I had a knife that came out. I have a friend of mine who's a knife maker. His name is also Nir. He also served in a special unit in the IDF, and he makes these incredible purpose-built combat knives that all have an Israeli flair to them. And I forever, I've been in martial arts since the age of 4, and knives have always been one of the leading proponents of my martial arts training. So I've always been hooked on knives, and I always wanted to have my own knife. And I had in my mind for decades a design idea. And then one day, Nir and I get together, and we're like, look, let's make a knife together. I want to make the Nir Maman counter-terror unit tribute knife. And we started designing it. It was about a year of a process, back and forth, and finally we had this knife that came out. It was called the Chatul, which means cat in Hebrew. Our unit logo is a black cat with bat wings, and we made my knife. Such a special knife. It was incredible to be a part of and to have it. And so Avichai came to me one day. He says, listen, the new commander, Eli, if you want to get in good with him, get him a knife. He loves knives, and this knife is he is going to flip over it. And it's the unit knife and the whole bit. So I sent them a bunch of knives. One for Eli, the rest were for the honor graduates of our training, the recruit training. Eli got the knife, and the next day I got this beautiful little video that he made me in his office. So his wall had this rack of all these knives that he collected, and he made me this beautiful kind of unboxing video of my knife. And he opens it up and he shows the camera the knife, and then he sheaths it in his holster in the belt. He turns around with a smile on his face, and he walks out the office like he's going to combat with the Nir Maman counter-terror knife on him. And he does like a serious kind of look, and then he turns back, right, because more pretending to go out, and he kind of turns back in to face the camera, but he's got that Ellie smile on him, and he made me that video, and then a short while later, I get another video from him. And he says, Nir, my brother, I have this knife waiting for you when you get here to Israel. And it was this knife that he had made for me. Nice Rambo K-bar survival knife with our unit logo on it. And so to go back for a second to fill in the blanks about what he meant by when I come to Israel, this was sometime in, I think, September, beginning of September, August, September. I already had a plane ticket for Israel for October 27th until November 7th. I was supposed to be in Israel. Why? I have another friend who is the chief editor of a magazine called Flashbang magazine. It's a magazine that features the world's most elite counterterrorism and tactical units. And forever, he's been wanting to feature an Israeli unit. And I met him a couple of years back at this big event called SHOT Show in Las Vegas. It's a massive conference and trade show for police and military and hunting. And when we met, I started explaining to him about our unit. He says, I want to feature your unit. I want the counter-terror unit to be featured in the magazine. Can you make it happen? And it took a long time for us to be able to make it happen, to finally get the approvals from the IDF. And when we finally made it happen, Ellie and me were so happy. We were rejoicing. We were going to make an incredible, it's like a 50-page pictorial graphical article. We got a helicopter scene, a hostage rescue scene. Like, we were going to make this spectacular article out of the unit. I told Ellie from day one, when I presented the opportunity to him, I said, listen, the only condition is, if you're going to have me make this happen for the unit, you have to promise me that you're going to sign me back into reserve service, and I'm coming for that entire week. I'm part of the unit, and I will be in the article with the unit. Says, don't even mention it. You're an alumni of the unit. Get over here, we'll get your uniform and guns, and that's a done deal as far as I'm concerned. That would have been my first time in 13 years after my discharge that I would have been back in uniform, with my unit. And then I went to Dom, the chief editor of the magazine, a Flashbang, and I said, listen, Dom, so before I said this, a few months later, we got the approvals by the IDF to do the article. So I remember I called Dawn that morning. I said, listen, I have a stipulation. If I get you permission to do the article, you have to promise me that we're going to be on the cover and that it'll be a picture with me on it. And the reason why I wanted that is because in 2008, when I was in the unit, Special Operations Report magazine, a similar magazine, did a write-up on our unit, and I ended up on the cover. And I wanted to have a picture of me representing the unit from 2008 and then one from 2023. I thought it would have been so cool. So Dom, he laughed. Yeah, that's easy. No problem. You'll be on the cover. I said, very good. Mazal Tov, we got permission. I just got the phone call. So let's get to work. So we were all jumping for joy. Ellie and me were on the phone almost daily, coordinating everything and, making it happen. And then one day in September, I think it was about mid-September or the last week of September even, I remember exactly now, out of the blue, I get this text message from Ellie on WhatsApp. And he says, my dear brother Nir, just so you know, I've decided to leave the Army. I'm retiring. I'm done. I've been at it for whatever it was, 21, 22 years. I have other things I want to go do in life. However, I'm still going to meet you here at the unit for the article. The new commander, I've already spoken to him. I've passed the torch on. I'm going to connect you with him, and everything is still going to go on. And get to Israel already. Let's go celebrate. Let's go have dinner. Let's go, have fun. He sent me a heart and hugs, and I said, wonderful. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I already had my plane ticket for Israel. So October 7th happens. I remember October 8th, I get a message from Avichai, from the association. And he says to me, he leaves me a voice message. He says, Nir, you don't understand what's going on here. People don't understand what's happening. We already have some casualties in the unit. Now, it didn't register to me. To me, I was thinking casualties, some scrapes, some bruises, maybe a gunshot here and there, but it's all good. Everybody's going to be fine. We're warriors. We're strong. We've all had our little brushes with danger, and everybody's going to be fine. I had no clue of the magnitude of what he was referring to. And it was just a few days later. By this whole time, my wife and I, we are starting about me potentially going back to serve. I got to Israel 3 weeks late. I couldn't get there until November 1st. It took time to process me, to get me back into service. There was a period of time where for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, the IDF stopped all recruitment of reservists because October 7th, a lot of soldiers, many who weren't even in active reserve duty, ran to base, grabbed guns, and joined their teams. And we had, in our unit, we had such people that served in the unit many years ago. They left everything, and they grabbed their guns, and they went down to the south. And there were soldiers that were killed, if not badly injured, that weren't even in the system. The IDF couldn't even process them because they were not officially in reserve service. So the IDF stopped all recruitment. So I had about a 3-week delay before I was able to finally get on a plane, which was November 1st. Now, these whole 3 weeks, my wife and I are contending with, how is this going to happen? How am I going back? What are we going to do? What are we going to tell the kids? And that's the story that you talked about at the very beginning, where we agreed that we were going to have a sit down with all of our kids, and together we'll come up with the best possible way to explain to them what's going to go on. So we can also field all of their questions. We can deal with them individually, if they need extra or special attention. And we didn't have that talk. I think it was about 2 weeks that we didn't have to have that talk. I was not sleeping. It was as if I was already in service. I was on the phone day and night. I was doing recruitment drives for fundraising, for equipment for my teams and soldiers. We were very busy. Finally, this one particular night, it was almost a week after October 7th. my wife, Simone, says, tonight we're putting the kids to bed and we have to sit down and talk. You're on a plane in about a week or two. We have to get things in place in order. And I mean, get things in place. Listen, we had to get our wills done, powers of attorney done. Like, it was a whole domino effect of things that, that you face, that you have to do. So we finally got Emmett, our 4-year-old, to bed. A little bit past midnight. We go downstairs, we sit on the couch. 5 minutes don't go by that we start the conversation. How do we tell the kids? I suddenly get a notification on my phone. I'm in WhatsApp. Every unit, every association, we have WhatsApp groups. So the counter-terror unit WhatsApp group I belong to, and suddenly a notification came up. The IDF has now released the names of some of the fallen soldiers in the past week. And from our unit, here are the names. And Ellie's name was the first one that showed up. And I'm reading, Oi, Saki, Ben, Oi. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So it was, I suddenly started living. I've known over the years people in the profession who have died, who were killed, but not like this. And I remember that night, all of a sudden, things starting to register inside me with having to now contend with this new chapter of my life. My wife immediately, she felt my pain and she understood the gravity of the situation. And she said, you need to go. You need to go. It's okay. Don't worry. I will handle the kids. I will handle the house. Everything will be fine. I promise you that. But you need to go. So I get to Israel. And the one thing, I flew in full uniform. I left November 1st. I landed November 2nd in Ben Gurion. My commanders came to pick me up right from the airport. From the airport, it was right to Hebron, to our field base, right to the armory to get my gun, and the admin office to sign in, and right to the field I went. And the whole time that I was there, I didn't call friends. I didn't call family. I was there for just to serve. I didn't have the time really to even be distracted, I'm going to call it, by anything else. I have a lot of friends and family that are still in the service in very high capacities. And, I have one cousin, for example, he serves in a very, very specialized area in Israel. And, a couple of days after I'm there, he calls me up and he says, you really think that you can get to Israel and I won't know about it? Right? That's how kind of secret I was trying to keep it all. So in my mind, the one thing that I made it a mission that I needed to go do, I wanted to go to my old base, the counter-terror unit base in central Israel, and to go pick up my knife. It took me probably about a month and a half before I finally worked up, I think, the courage to do that. And I had one of my, it got to the point that every about 2 to 3 weeks, we would have 24 to 48 hours off. So I had my weekend off, and I call the officer who was in charge of kind of the operations of the base. He knew about me. He knew the story, so he was involved in our discussions for the flashbang article on the unit. He was the logistics guy. And so Ellie connected me with him, and we were talking. So I called him up on this one particular, it was the day before my day off. I said, listen, Asaf was his name. I said, I'm planning on coming to the base tomorrow to pick up my knife that Ellie left for me. Can you just please make sure that it's ready? I just want to come in, I want to get it, and I want to leave. He said, yeah, call me when you're on 5 minutes away from the base, and I'll arrange the entry for you to the base. So I get to the base. I had a friend of mine that drove me down. And I call Asaf. He says, listen, I'm not there, but my deputy, she's there. She's a lieutenant. She's going to greet you. I forget the name now. She's going to just ask for her. She'll help you. We pull into the base. We park the car. As soon as I get out, I see this young female officer walk out of one of the buildings, and she stops and she looks at me. And for whatever reason, she knew that I was Nir Maman and I came for the knife. She was standing there smiling at me. And I come walking up. She goes, "You're Nir, right?" I said, "I am." "Yep." Asaf told me, "You're here for your knife. Come, let's go get it." So I followed her into the commander's office. I waited outside. She goes in. She comes out a moment later, and she said, "Here's your knife." So, I already, first of all, had in my mind, I didn't know how I was going to feel when I would actually receive that knife in my hands. I had to contend with that. And she gives me the box, and I'm holding it, and I'm staring at it. And of course, I start to think back right away, like it was just yesterday that you made me this video holding this box, showing it to me. And no sooner does that thought go through my mind that she says to me, she goes, "I don't know if you know the story behind your knife as far as here at the unit, but October 7th, when everything happened, Ellie got to base in the evening, started to get the teams ready that he was going to deploy to the south with. And right before he left, the last thing he did, he sent a group text message out to all the commanders on base saying, Nir Maman's knife is in my drawer. Make sure he gets it." And then the next day, he was killed in Billy. So put that much more, kind of weight on the situation and special sentiment, I guess, feelings behind the knife. That's my knife story with Ellie.
Can we see the knife?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This was the box. This is Nir Maman. He wrote in there for me. It stayed in his drawer for, I think, 2 months or something. And this is the knife. This is the insignia of our unit that he had engraved. The counter-terror school, the counter-terror unit. And this is my most special knife that I have out of my entire collection. And it's in a very good place. And I'm grateful to at least have that, I think back of all the losses, and every one of these relationships, there's something special, unique about it that you can kind of extrapolate and take, and it kind of lets you at least carry their memory with a smile, That's my knife story.
Yeah. I've never done an interview like this before. Never.
Neither have
Neither of you? Like, I feel, Jews in the diaspora, we wonder about you guys. We really do. We wonder about you guys, how you're doing, what's going through your head, how you respond to terrifying situations. And I think that this discussion that you and I had today qualifies it better than anything I've heard. Like, you were magnificent, Nir.
Thank you.
Magnificent. Yeah, magnificent. How did you feel about it?
So I've done many interviews in my life. I've spent almost 30 years in television and movies and that kind of stuff, documentaries. I've been on the news tons, doing interviews for the last 20 years on terror incidents and police training and that kind of stuff. And in these last couple months, I'm not giving interviews. I'm sharing a story. And there's so many things that are just intertwined. Even for me, a lot of realizations, a lot of things that it's a story within a story within a story. And it makes it that much more special. It makes it almost like a healing process for me as well. You know, I have to leave you with this story as well. I know that we're wrapping up, but I think that I have to, with, you know, everything we've talked about, and especially also at the beginning with both of our families' personal losses. I explained to you that March 19th of 2012, there was the terrorist attack in the Jewish school in Toulouse, France, and the 4 victims that were killed: Rabbi Sandler with his 3-year-old son and 6-year-old son, Gabriel and Arié, and an 8-year-old girl, Miriam Montenegro. And Miriam was a relative of mine. My PTSD journey started to come out when that incident happened, for many reasons. And I'm still baffled by this story that I'm telling you right now, but you know, just how things are kind of meant to be. When I went back into service for reserves right now, my first 4 months, I was assigned to a light infantry battalion in Severyn, battalion 5060. It's not a special unit. I have always served in special units, but this one is not a special unit, but it's a reserve unit where a lot of people from special units come to. And I wanted to really go back into a special unit. That's where I'm from. And I said, look, whatever. I have a place. I'm in uniform. Thank God. I'm happy. Everything for a reason. My first week, I think it was my first 3 days, day 4 that I'm in the unit, November something. I am sitting, we're at our military outpost in the middle of Severyn, you know, where we have attacks going on everywhere. Gunfire goes on, you know, we sleep with our boots and our guns in our hands. And I'm sitting talking to one of the guys that I just met. His name is Jeremy. He's a French guy from France. French Jew who made Aliyah, moved to Israel 4 years prior, joined the IDF, and he's now in reserves. And we're having dinner together. We're sitting outside on this picnic table within the little compound, and we're sharing each other's stories. And he says to me, he goes, you know, I left France because of all the anti-Semitism that was there. And then it was my turn. I said, look, you know, I'll share with you my story that connects to France. I have a lot of family in France from my father's side. And I'm sure you remember the terrorist attack at the Jewish day school in 2012. He goes, of course I do. I told him, so Miriam, the 8-year-old girl, she's a relative of mine. He pauses for a bit. I'm still talking, and he pauses. He says, Nir, look, I'm going to share something with you. He goes, I don't know if I should share it. I don't know, but I feel that I should. And I hope you're okay with me sharing this with you. He says, before I left France, for at least a year or so, he put together an organization to help Jewish youth, troubled youth that came from hardships and broken homes, and to kind of create a unity, a community of Jewish youth to also help them contend with all this anti-Semitism going on in France. He said, I had this one young kid. At that time, he was 16 or 17 years old that this particular incident occurred that he's telling me about. And he said this one particular day, we went on a field trip. We went to a swimming pool, and we're all in the change room getting changed into our swim attire. And his name is Jonathan. He takes off his shirt, and his torso was full of these scars. He goes, I thought they were like stab wounds. And I couldn't believe it, like front and back. And I asked him, I said, Jonathan, can I ask what those scars are all from? He said, yeah. He said, well, you remember the terrorist attack at the Jewish day school in Toulouse in 2012? He goes, of course I do. So he was years younger. He said, so you have to understand the mechanics of the attack. This terrorist jumps off of his moped, and he shoots Rabbi Sandler and his 3-year-old and 6-year-old boy right there at the bus stop at the curb. Miriam started running. She gets back into the school, and he chases her into the school, and he catches her, and he shoots her in the head and kills her. What I didn't know for all these years, before that point, this young student by the name of Jonathan who heard the commotion, jumped out of a classroom. He saw Miriam running, and he tried to stop the terrorist. He jumped in between Miriam and the terrorist shot him multiple times. Miriam died. He survived. So, I mean, I'm sitting there listening to this. I was beside myself. I didn't know what to make. I mean, I right away run and I call my wife. So I got to tell you this story. If there's a reason as to why I ended up here in Hebron in Battalion 5060, I know what that reason is. And I told Jeremy, I said, as soon as I'm ready, I need you to connect me with Jonathan. I really want to meet him. I want to speak with him. So that will happen. It's in the makings. It will happen. But this whole situation for me has just been a story within a story within a story. And I sit here now. I've done a couple, not many. I've done a couple of podcasts and interviews and shared my story, even just not, in a formal recording kind of a way. And what's made this so different for me is I'm sharing a story. I'm not talking about things. I'm sharing a story that I still can't believe this is my life. This is what I've lived in these last few months. And so, yes, this has been very special for me. It's very healing for me. It's important for me. I'm grateful for the opportunity. And that's how I feel about our session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nir. Thank you. I want to conclude with a fascinating point. I don't know how many people know this. On October 7th, when the Israelis were being eventually saved, there was a code that they used in order to let them know that the IDF had come and that it wasn't terrorists claiming to be the IDF. What was that code, Nir? What was the code they used to get people out of their homes?
It was the Shema. I think it's the most sacred prayer that we have. It's the one that we put on tefillin every day and that we recite. It's the prayer for Israel. It's the prayer for Am Yisrael. It's the prayer for our salvation and our protection and our homeland. And that is
so the IDF would come and they would say to the Israeli family, the Jewish family, they would tell them to say Shema, or the Chayal would say the Shema.
So predominantly the first way around, what would happen? We'd have different units that would come to the rescue hostages in the kibbutzim. And you have buildings, you have houses, and when they would reach these structures, and they would get any type of a sign of life, movement, anything inside, you have to be very discriminatory. You can't just, throw a grenade inside or start to shoot inside for very obvious reasons. We're dealing with a hostage situation and civilians. And you would need a way to identify. Now, why? You have a lot of these civilians didn't want to come out of their homes, even when the IDF had already taken over the area and told them it's safe to do so, because a lot of these terrorists, there were two things here. A lot of these terrorists, these Palestinian terrorists, were Palestinians that these kibbutzim hired to work in there. They gave them jobs. And a lot of these families knew them. They looked out their window and they said, this can't be happening. He was part of our family. We gave him work, and he's here with a gun now trying to kill us. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect is a lot of these terrorists also tried to dress up like IDF soldiers, and the way that they were coaxing civilians out of their mamadim, their bomb shelter rooms, was by telling them that they're the IDF. Come out, the IDF is here. And then they would kill them as soon as the civilians would come out. So there's a lot of trust issues. So on the side of the IDF, a lot of these units, it's even in Gaza today, we have a lot of bait situations that occur. They would try to lure us into buildings and into rooms within buildings where there's ambushes. They would play tape recordings of babies crying, for example. of somebody, a voice in Hebrew asking for help. And these would be tape recordings, and there would be a bomb inside the room. So we would hopefully let our guard down and come walking into that room, and then they blow us up. We have at least one incident that I know confirmed. I spoke with a soldier of a baby, a Palestinian baby that was placed in the threshold of a door inside a Hamas-occupied building. So when the soldiers went in, there was a baby lying there on the floor. And the terrorist was inside waiting to ambush the soldiers, with the hope, of course, that they would lower their guns, come in to pick up the baby, expose themselves, and then he would kill them. These were the multitude of things that were thrown into the mix of this whole situation by October 7th. So on the IDF side of things, they had to really discern who they're dealing with. And so what they would do, if there was a sign of life inside a room or inside a structure, a house, they would yell at them to recite the Shema. Not just the words, not just the prayer, but the tone, the accents, and that would help them further decipher what they're dealing with. And then conversely as well, you had a lot of civilians that said, I don't trust you that you're the IDF. Prove it to me. And there was all kinds of situations that occurred. Soldiers reciting the Shema. Let's say the Shema together, okay? I know within our unit as well, we had a little girl who didn't want to come out. She had her phone. And the one soldier from our unit sent her, they exchanged phone numbers so she could FaceTime him. And he was on FaceTime with her, showing her the kibbutz, walking around to other civilians that came out. And he was on FaceTime with her for about 45 minutes before she felt confident to unlock the door. You know, so these are some of the things that both the civilians and the IDF faced in this dynamic.
You know, Nir, I this time I really will conclude here because we could go on for hours. I feel like you and I have gone through something here. I feel like we've really gone through something important these last
So
2
do I.
hours. And
So
I want
do
to
I.
thank you so much for having the wherewithal, the understanding how important this interview is to so many diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews as well. And B, I'm hugging you right now. I'm embracing you right now with all my heart. With all my heart.
I'm sending you a virtual embrace back, and we will make it in person, that's for sure. We're down the street from each other.
Yeah, we're not far away from each other. But I truly feel, and I don't want this to be hyperbole or people to think it's silly, but I honestly feel great love for you. I really do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you to you, and thank you to Simone, your wife, and thank you to your 5 children. And thank you to all your fellow Chayelim and all the people in Israel who are so brave and so courageous, not only for themselves, not only for Eretz Yisrael, but for we here in the diaspora. So I'm Yisrael Chai. Thank you again for doing this, Nir. And I look forward to meeting you soon. I really do. You were wonderful. You're really wonderful. Okay. Thanks, folks, for listening. And as Nir said before, make sure to play a role in this war. Whatever it is, if it's collecting equipment for Chayelim and Chayelot, then make it that. If it's staying home to take care of children while the husband goes off to war, then you do that. There are a plethora of things that are open to us. And we all, every single Jew everywhere throughout the world, has to be a warrior in their own way. So make sure to do that. If you don't have ideas, if you don't know what to do, then be in touch with me. I'm at avrum.rosensweig@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. It's been the Avrum Rosensweig Show with Nir Maman, and we look forward to being with you again this coming Sunday when I'll be interviewing Rabbi Dr. Marty Lukshin, who lives in Israel as well. Really a wonderful human being, specialist on the Rashbam, somebody who helped start up some very liberal Orthodox services. It'll be well worth hearing. Thank you so much. Take care.